Hello, I'm Anne McLean for Concerts from the Library of Congress. This week we are delighted to present the Pavel Haas Quartet with pianist Boris Giltburg, playing music of Smetana, Bartok, and Brahms. I'm so pleased to be talking today with Peter Yaroshek, cellist of the Pavel Haas, and with Boris Giltburg. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your concert collaboration really seems to be a meeting of close friends. This comes across so beautifully. And viewers will hear this in our concert, which will be available on our website for several weeks. And I wanted to say, how did you come together? Because it's a remarkable melding of musical affinities, I think. How long have you been working together?
Since 2014, I think. We met first time at a chamber music festival in Holland, in Zeist. We didn't know each other. The festival organizer put us together, and we were to play the Dvořák piano quintet. And at least for me, from the very first rehearsal, there was a really massive click, both on a music level and personally. And since then, we've been working together almost every year. So.
And you say you're based in both Holland and Prague, and of course the Pavel House is in Prague. This is really going to be a beautiful program, and with repertoire that shows off the gorgeous and opulent sound that you are known for as a quartet. You know, it's people say, "Oh, the Pavel Haas sound is immediately identifiable," and for me, it's that rich Central European sound, so intense, so warm. And your sound, Boris, is a great match. And I wanted to ask if how do you talk about this when you approach the Brahms? And let's talk about the Brahms first in our conversation now. Did you talk about the kind of sound you were after? And I noticed you're playing a Fazioli piano.
It's a good question. Peter, did we talk about the sound specifically? Because we listen to each other a lot. That's for sure. Did we discuss the sound?
I don't remember that, but I think, of course, if it is hard to explain, of course, how specific is to find kind of that chemistry and the person who, as you said, that big click. It is about the luck, I think, and then to analyze that is really difficult, especially for me as an insider. Of course, to say that we have some specific sound is better rather not discuss that or analyze that. I mean, it is natural, and of course, for example, if I'm talking about Boris, don't listen, Boris. He has extremely sensitivity about the sound, and I must say that very often I can immediately recognize his sound, and I think it is because he would like to because piano has a limit, of course, because the long notes, legato is always this, and then it's going down.
There's the decay.
And of course voices and the string players, of course the wind players as well, but even I think string players, I mean, we are so lucky that we can play string instrument because we don't need to really breathe. So we can really have the long phrase, the long legato. And I think for you, Boris, it is something which you would like to always, achieve. That's something in your sound. I can feel that that's why maybe it works, with the string in general.
Thank you very much. It's not something that I thought about. I mean, for example, playing the Shostakovich quintet, there definitely the piano is almost like a fifth string instrument.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, at least during playing and performance, there is a lot in chamber music in general. There's a lot of sometimes undiscussed, maybe even subconscious changes you do to your playing in order to be part of this musical world which is created by everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But also there's also another aspect with Boris is that he's even more than chamber music player, because he sometimes always would like to to bring something to the other people. Very often I'm saying that, Boris, you must just be a dominant, because this is the, but on all the time he's trying, to be, with everything together.
But thank you. But I think Brahms is definitely, so the piano part is big. I'd say bigger than in Dvorak. You definitely feel it, that he was a great pianist himself, as opposed to Dvorak, and it's a virtuoso part in many places, has bravura passages, and so there I think I feel quite comfortable also playing to the full extent of the possibilities of the piano.
Yeah.
We were talking about a moment ago, we were talking about the evolution of this majestic work and the fascinating story that it had 3 incarnations, a string quintet, and then the sonata for 2 pianos, and then finally the piano quintet. And I wanted to ask you, let's talk about that story. I know that Clara Schumann and Joseph Joachim both had reservations about the original string quintet version. And they were saying, well, it might work, but it's not optimal and so on. And I understand that Brahms was so frustrated that he destroyed a lot of his manuscripts, but he literally used some as wallpaper, which was kind of funny. I mean, literally plastered his room with. But so let's describe a little bit of this evolution and how the piano writing finally brought out the real remarkable aspects of the work.
I have played also the 2 piano versions, so I'm familiar with the 2 incarnations. I definitely feel that the final version, the piano quintet, is the best one. And as we discussed before, I have this feeling when playing the piece that it feels as if it must have been conceived for this setting. It feels so natural in this combination, because and I think this is what Joachim and Clara said, that in the string quintet there was not enough body, not enough core, not enough ground to support the scope of the piece, and which in the 2 piano version there is, but then you lose this beautiful long line which Peter was talking about, and this beautiful sustained sound and this lyricism and this warmth which string players and the Pavel Haas in particular bring to this piece. So which is why for me the final version is by far the most successful, and I would say the best.
And one thing I was interested in learning about was the connection to the Schubert big string quintet, that I hadn't realized that this was something in his mind and inspiration. And as we were saying a moment ago, Boris, that Brahms played through this in a 4-hand version with Clara Schumann. So that's a thread too. And I wanted to ask you about other connections to Schubert. Like there's that half step interval, that very striking, dramatic half step finale gesture. There's that. And what else seems to come to mind about these connections, if anything?
I would say the song-like quality of the second movement. It has this gentleness and this feeling that you have something very precious in your hands. And the way it starts with it's espressivo but sotto voce, and this for me is quite Schubertian as a gesture. You often have this feeling of a small world which is infinitely precious to the musician, to the composer, to the performer. Peter, any other?
Actually, I must agree, but it's too intellectual for me, I think. I don't know.
I must admit that for me there is not a lot in the spirit of the work connecting to Schubert, because for me there is this darkness which is ultimately Brahmsian.
But the second movement, as you say, is never-ending beauty, which is also in Schubert's, what I feel, when play string quintet or other pieces. It is like really like it can't stop that line, which is kind of like a meditation. And I must say that as you mentioned, the second movement, it reminds me that feeling that I feel the same.
But I was going to say that The quintet for me is so deeply in the romantic world, much more than because Schubert always still keeps the transparency, and still there's still a direct connection to classicism. And here, for me, this is so deep in this romantic
Even
vision.
even further maybe, because the third movement is a really rock and roll thing. So
Oh yeah. It's
so
very modern.
that maybe, yeah, it was
Yeah, I don't think
the
Schubert would
first
have written
rock and
something
roll
like that.
piece, or even the rock part. So and it should be
Yeah.
played
One of
like
the
that. I like it.
yeah. Uh, one of the I enjoyed reading all these comments about both Joachim and Clara Schumann, and Joachim said that it showed proof of overpowering strength, the piece, the original version, but it lacked what he called Longreiz, which he said was a certain charm, a sound charm, which of course in the evolution of the piece, all these beautiful qualities come out. And Clara's comment was that she felt it had so many rich ideas that it needed an orchestra to express them all.
Mm. Well, there's the orchestration of the first piano quartet by Schoenberg, where
Oh, I didn't know that.
Me
yeah,
neither.
no, it's a very successful one. It's a good piece. So it definitely feels very rich. And I just wanted to go back for a second to your question about sound and the sound match. And I was thinking it also works the other way around, that the reason I can allow myself not to hold back and to play full power is because of the richness of the sound of the quartet. And what
Yes.
you spoke about the orchestral sound, so there are definitely places there in the big climaxes, like this rock and roll piece in the third movement, but also the big climaxes of the first and finale, which is the coda of the finale. That's a massive wall of sound.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
Yeah,
just
Yes.
everybody is one big organism. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
That's
really
right.
comes across in your performance of this. And I think that so much of what the quartet, well, let me say that the Pavel Haas Quartet has been with the library at the libraries twice, and we loved having them so much. But again, the experience of the sound, and of course in our concert hall, which is very intimate, it's remarkable. So I'm very excited about hearing this, and I wanted to say, what are your plans together? Before we move on to talk about the other works on the program a little bit, do you have some new things coming your way?
Absolutely, we have loads of stuff. Peter,
Yeah,
what to
actually,
start
yeah.
with?
As you can see, I'm smiling. So
I can see.
we will have quite a great challenges, I must say. Boris Boris will be a curator of the complete piano trios and chamber music concerts in Dvořák's Prague this year, which
In
is
September.
really in September. Great thing, and we will play with
And,
Boris
yeah,
Schumann,
invited.
Shostakovich Quintet, and all 4 piano trios by Antonín Dvořák in Dvořák's Hall,
Wonderful.
in Dvořák's
So-
Prague.
So the guys are my main collaborators for that project, and it's a really wonderful thing to be playing with Petra and Veronica also in a trio setting, which is very
Yeah.
different but hugely enjoyable.
Yeah.
And speaking of Schubert, we're playing at the Schubertiade, and we're doing the big E flat major trio together, and we are
I'd like to hear that.
yeah, that's a huge project as well, and we are hoping to record the Brahms later in the year.
For Supraphon label this year in November there should be a recording session. Hopefully everything will be as it is planned.
Yeah.
So and there is also another project which is Boris project in Flagey in Brussels. We will play Frank
Ravel
Quintet and Ravel Trio also in Bigmore Hall, where Boris during 2 years will have
I can say that. Yeah, I have a 2-year residency to perform the complete works of Ravel, and it's always Ravel mixed with other composers. So we have recitals and chamber music, and we're doing it at the Wigmore in Brussels and possibly also in Amsterdam. The Muziekgebouw.
Wonderful. You have such a wonderful life to look forward to, musical life together. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Smetana and follow up on some comments that you made once about the piece, and I have your recording actually, you're from several years ago, and one of the things that you said is that even 2 years after a recording, you have a new take, a new feeling for a work. And I was curious, having heard the old recording, how do you envision this work now? What do you think are your differences?
I don't remember the recording, so it's difficult
Okay.
to say.
Well,
I haven't listened. I haven't listened the recording after when we just over. But I mean, maybe you are expecting to say something objective about it, but I know this is just the feeling. It is like life, you know. If you don't want to stuck in one level or stage. So, and every day are coming some new influences, new people, just the new things. And I think we all are changing, you know, not dramatically, but it's kind of variety of many aspects. So, and now, of course, for example, one of the big changes was that we have a new viola player, Luo Shafang, which is, you know, it is naturally must be different, yeah. But of course, in Smetana, always have to, in Czech, in Bohemian music, you have to think about the singing, the voices, the melodies. So it should stay there in the same thing, and especially the second Smetana. It is one of the very unusual composition. Especially at that time, it was like revolution. Yeah, I mean, nobody before that, maybe Beethoven, wrote something which he totally destroyed the form. And it was his last piece, what he wrote. He was actually at that time he was very ill. He very often, there was some hallucinations. He wasn't actually in real world. But when I saw the manuscript, for example, it was perfect. There was no change. It was like printed thing. Yeah. So he was really sure what he's doing. On the other hand, the music is like the mosaic. You know, it is going up and down. It is full of contrast. It is even more than in Janacek's music. Or yeah, it is. So it is very often the beauty things and suddenly stopped or interrupted with like a mess and in his head. So it is like a diagnose, maybe more than the real work. So I love that piece. And of course, I'm now answering something else, but you asked me about some change. But I can't say really what's changed since we recorded this piece. I mean, I don't know.
It's such a harrowing piece. It's frightening in places, and it's so powerful. And yet, as you say, there are disjunct moments, there are quirky moments, there are many changes in mood and so forth. And I thought about the Beethoven Opus 131 with all the many different movements.
Exactly.
And I wondered if perhaps he had been thinking of this or studying it or whatever, or the example was in his mind. But it's also what I heard was these disjointed gestures, but yet then you pop up with the viola soliloquy in the second movement, a gorgeous viola line that is so vocal, you know.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable piece. It's so different from the Quartet No. 1, of course.
Absolutely, and comparing with the other romantic pieces, I think Arnold Schoenberg said about that piece that this is the first modern piece ever.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah,
that's very interesting.
And I must say also my experience from the performances, what we played that piece, and we played it very often, that I had a feeling from the audience, they just didn't know what is going to happen, what happened there.
Yeah,
so
I can see that.
I'm pretty sure that they were just confused. Once they, I don't know, just were sure that, now we understand, it was interrupted. Yeah, and then again and again.
Yeah.
And at the end, I think we had only once kind of bravo after that. And it was in Tonhalle in Zurich. Just happened. I don't know why, but it was only one.
Interesting. Finally, maybe about the Bartok, just a few moments on this. You've made so many great recordings, Janacek, Haas, Schubert, and so on, and of course the great Dvorak one that you made. But I was realizing that Bartok's music is just now coming into your view, and I wondered why you chose the fourth quartet to start with, and why you waited with this.
Yeah, there are two things. Well, I mean, in general, the question is why Bartok, let's say, a bit quite late, yeah, in our why? Because I was always, I mean, honestly, me personally, I was always fascinated by his music, but I didn't understand that music.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was something which I was always amazed to listen to that. But I mean, of course, I can play all notes. We can play it. If you can play the instruments, you can play anything. But if you don't understand the point of the music, the core of that, just I think it doesn't make really sense why to play that. But once, you know, we were just listening. I was listening to some symphony music, and then I don't know. It is just the instinct or intuition that we were just sitting with Veronica, and I heard number 5, the quartet, which is a monster.
That's our commission. That's a library commission.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Now, yeah, that's true. So it is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. There's music for 2 quartets. You know, it is great. Yeah. So, and we enjoyed it. It was a really big challenge. And then while we played our replay now, number 4, it was very simple because Società Amici della Musica in Milano asked us to play number 4 combination with Beethoven 130 with Grosse Fuge, which was actually 30th anniversary of one cycle of Quartetto Italiano. It was exactly the same program what they played 30 years back. And we just said, look, I mean, this is one of the most difficult pieces, number 4.
Yeah.
So we took it as a challenge.
It's a fine recording of it. And then to end with, I mean, there's so much we could talk about, but I know your time is limited. I wanted to ask you about your comments about slow cooking, which can apply to both you at the Pavel Haas Quartet and to Boris, perhaps, in the sense that I loved seeing your quote about how you as a quartet are into the slow cuisine, slow preparation, you know, time to really consider, prepare, and so on. You say you don't really want to have too many things going on. You do certain things in depth.
Yeah, I mean, this is very complex question. It's about the whole attitude, you know, how
Yeah.
we, because it is about respect to the music, yeah, and we always feel that it is a long process. Of course, every performance is different, but once the process, how to explain it, it's difficult, but we feel that everything, if we will, for example, make some recordings, it has to have that kind of maturity, and it's kind of course, sometimes on the other hand, it is really difficult and very complicated question about in our quartet. We always play that like that, and we always planned the pieces like that. On the other hand, I just realized that maybe it is too much sometimes. Sometimes you need kind of deadline and pressure, and it is more
just dive into it.
Yeah. And just try that, and it can also brings another point of view on that piece. But in general, we prefer to not do it like for 3-4 rehearsals and just play it. Of course, honestly, probably not many people will recognize the difference, but we can't. I mean, I can hardly enjoy that moment. You know, if it is just about just finish that, or just survive, or just do it. You know, it is not enough for me.
I'm a little bit the other way around, I have to say. I prefer to jump into performing as quickly as I can. I mean, not with every repertoire, but with most things. And last year, my big project was the complete Beethoven Sonata cycle,
Yeah.
and
saw that.
23 of them I've not played before I started the project. So the project was actually
Wow.
learning the cycle and getting to know it as I went along. And working with the Pavel Haas, I really appreciate the time we're taking for the rehearsals. So especially, in chamber music setting in a festival, often you would have 1 or 2 rehearsals with people
Yeah.
you might have just met.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it really feels like, as Peter mentioned, that we just put something together on a plate and we're already serving it
Yeah.
before it's had time to cook.
I,
So maybe also what Peter was saying, it's about finding a balance of
Mhm.
yep.
what is either our instinct and what might be better for the piece. I'm absolutely certain that every piece that you can come back to and perform again and look at again and practice again will improve, will benefit, you will discover new layers, you will discover new things. These works, they are endlessly deep and they're endlessly multifaceted, and we never luckily get to a point where we can say we know everything there is about the Brahms quintet or any of the other pieces.
Yeah, it's a
But
never-ending process.
yeah,
But Boris, sorry, I just have to maybe clarify that a bit, because of course it is not like that we are practicing the one piece 1 month and then
No.
we have a
No.
concert. I mean, I was talking about the process, and the concerts is the necessary part of the process.
yes,
Yeah. So we are practicing the piece like week and 10 days. Then we have some small concerts. Then some performance scenes, and maybe the final thing is maybe recording. Yeah.
yes,
So
yeah,
this is that process, and which really you can't just jump over that. Just
No, it's true, especially the concert thing. So sometimes, no matter how much you practice at home, until you go and you have this spotlight on you, this spotlight of playing for a live audience, you cannot.
Mm.
And then in a concert, so many, yeah.
It is like for sportsmen, then they can make training every day, but if there is no a match, if there is no a battle, they are stuck. So this performance is the most important. How to kind of reach that your final vision. Yeah, never doesn't
Or to
exist,
advance
but
further. Yeah.
just
You know,
to move
agree completely.
the interpretation somewhere.
And so many things become clear during a performance, things
Yeah.
which you might have.
Interesting.
Yeah, sometimes you think this is possible and this is possible, but then at the moment of truth, you realize that no, just this works, at least for today.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, your partnership shows all of this. It really does. It bears out what you're saying, and it's remarkable. We
Thank
were
you so much.
so pleased to be able to present this. Look forward to others in the future, and Boris, perhaps a concert with you, but keep it up. Please don't stop. Anyway.
No, we won't. We're just.
Yeah. Congratulations. Well, thank you so much. We'll
Thank
be
you,
looking forward to the next time. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for having us, and really hope to see you soon live.
Yes, we really do. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.